In a letter to the Prime Minister, she said a summit of the UK's 4 nations must be convened in order to provide clear leadership at the international meeting in Glasgow. Earlier this week, the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) released a report, painting a stark picture of the impact of humanity on the climate due to the burning of fossil fuels and other pollutants. The findings have led to fresh demands from activists for the development of the Cambo oil field to be abandoned. Caving to pressure, Ms. Sturgeon has now asked Mr. Johnson to consider withdrawing the license. In her letter she urged him to reassess the license given the urgency of the climate emergency.
She also asked for a summit
of the UK's 4 nations in order to provide clear leadership at the international meeting in Glasgow. She said, climate change is an inherently global issue and can only be addressed through coordinated international effort and working with offers. COP26 in Glasgow therefore represents the world's best chance, perhaps our last chance, to avert the worst impacts of climate change. The signals we send at this time are of the utmost importance, and it is essential that we demonstrate global leadership on the challenging decisions that need to be made. I am therefore writing to suggest that a 4-nation summit be convened in early course to discuss how we can work together, both in the run-up to COP and beyond, to ensure that individually and collectively we are providing this clear leadership. A UK government spokesperson said, the UK is the only G7 country to have agreed a landmark deal to support the oil and gas industry's transition to green energy by 2050 while at the same time supporting 40,000 jobs. Even though demand for fossil fuels is falling and we continue to break records on our use of renewable energy, the advice of the Independent Climate Change Committee is that we will continue to need oil and gas in the coming years as it is still vital to the production of many everyday essentials like medicines. We have already ended support for fossil fuels overseas, and are already designing a climate compatibility checkpoint which will ensure any future licenses will only be granted if they are aligned with the UK's climate change objectives. Ms. Sturgeon also wrote to the Prime Minister demanding a meeting last week when Mr. Johnson was on a visit to Scotland ahead of the COP26 conference. She invited him to talks at her official residence of Bute House in Edinburgh. Mr. Johnson turned down the offer but said he looked forward to discussing shared interests in the near future at a summit of the devolved nations. Ms. Sturgeon's latest letter has sparked heavy backlash among opponents for her failure to be more vocal in her opposition of Cambo. At the weekend she refused to give an opinion on the new oil field, describing it as not an issue for the Scottish Government. While she has now U-turned on the position by urging Mr. Johnson to reconsider the licence, she has not said she is against it. Greenpeace UK has slammed the letter as a PR exercise. Campaigner Sam Chetton-Walsh saying, Nicola Sturgeon is deferring to Boris Johnson to check the climate impact of Cambo, but until she makes her own stance clear this is just a PR exercise. The experts couldn't be clearer, humanity is at code red, and the last thing we can afford is a new oil field which would pump out the equivalent emissions of 18 coal-fired power stations running for a year. The First Minister must stop hiding behind Boris Johnson. If she wants to show leadership on climate she must clearly say, stop Cambo. Scottish Labour Net Zero spokeswoman, Monica Lennon, added, Scottish Labour has been urging Nicola Sturgeon to get off the fence and oppose the Cambo oilfield plans in the face of climate catastrophe. In the wake of growing pressure from grassroots campaigners, she has taken a baby step towards having a position. Now is not the time to reassess. It's time for Nicola Sturgeon to firmly and loudly oppose Cambo, once and for all.